Oh, look at that. Look at that. Little baby Trump. Little baby Trump. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I am your host, Joe Nierman, aka Good Logic. I hope that your day has been going well for you. Mine is thankfully healthy at the moment. Healthy. All right. Can't complain. I want to get right on into it because Jim has lined up a whole bunch of topics for us, trying to prove he's like, you thought you were going to have a prubba. No. There's no prubba going on here. How you doing,
There
my
was
brother?
no audio on that video clip, Joe.
Awesome. Sweet.
So,
Nice. Day's going well. Should we do it again?
I would play it again, so that way at least
You think I should? You think I should do it again? All right. Let me remove this. Let me bounce this out. Why is that not working? How did that possibly happen? Oh, there was a little baby Trump, in case you missed it. You don't need to see it. Everyone's got a fine. Here.
We could fix it in post.
No, we're not fixing it in post. There's no post here. Whatever happens, happens. Whatever happens, happens. This is what you missed.
So now they're crying over toys made in China. They say tariffs will ruin Christmas. I say good. Maybe it's time your kids learn where things come from.
It's true.
Not everything shows up in a box with a smile. We gave China our factories. They gave us cheap junk. Now we take it back. And if a few kids miss out on plastic garbage this year, blame the deals you voted for.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. Blame the deals you
So
voted
now they're crying.
back. We're gonna get it twice. Right,
Switch glasses when you're back.
Get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. How are you, Jimbo?
I'm good. Very, very interesting day today in the Karen Reed trial.
Are you? Was it an interesting day in the Karen Reed trial?
Well, they had the medical examiner on, the coroner or whatever, medical
Really?
examiner, and
Really?
she said that there was no signs that John O'Keefe was struck by a car.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
it should be the end of it. That should be the end of it.
Is that the state talking?
That's the state. That's the medical examiner. Yeah, she ruled it undetermined. She said, I don't know how he died.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Wow. I can understand why Bev is muttering under his breath. So unprofessional. Oh my gosh, so utterly unprofessional. I need to get this out of the way first. Nanner knows gifting 5, count them, 5 Good Logic memberships. God bless you, Nanner knows. Thank you so much. I genuinely appreciate that. Should I put a goal? Let's put a goal up here. I'm gonna make a very easy, really easy goal. Instead of the normal 15, we'll go with 10. And we're gonna 10. If I get 10 yellows, that's what we're doing. 10 yellows. In that case, I'll gift 5. I'll gift out 5 memberships myself. There we go. Gifting Joe. That's going to be it. Oh, look at that.
What is
look
that?
At that. Little baby. Oh. I know what happened there. Don't even ask. Got it. Start goal. Joe, just put a heads up in New Jersey Transit. Engineers going to strike tonight at midnight. Got to take a bus into Port Authority and take the AC or E downtown. I commute downtown every day. Oh my God. They sent a warning. They said when I bought the weekly pass this week, which I want you to know. So when I was going, because I take Jersey Transit to get into the city. And then I have to take a subway to downtown because Jersey Transit gets you into Penn Station, and then you got to take an A or C to get to downtown Manhattan where the courthouses are. So there's a notification, hey, be alert, there may be a strike. And I'm like, when? They're not saying when. And I wasn't buying a monthly. I was buying a weekly. I was like, it's probably not going to be this week. And I was doing the math, and basically, if you take 8 rides on it, it works out. And I And I ended up not taking the train in the morning. And I was like, if I buy it Monday afternoon, and then I can like late Monday afternoon, I can use it earlier and then actually get an extra ride out of it. But no. Jersey Transit, they run by the week. Like it doesn't matter when you buy it, it dies on Saturday. And I'm just like, that's messed up. I bought it on a Monday. You're telling me this week-long pass dies on a Saturday? That is not cool. So, yeah. Anyhow, strike. Great. Beautiful. I was back here with Nana Knows. That's where I was starting. And I got all confused. Nana Knows brought into the following: Fufu Mofu, El Becky, Justin Penn, Frosty Lee, and Cindy Bokeman. Welcome to the following, which I will remind you that I am not at all the leader of the following. I'm just a host. In fact, I'm not even a full host anymore. I got this guy sitting next to me. I'm a co-host. I'm a co-host. I don't know what that means. Can we talk book of? Is this pronounced Enoch? It's by you guys.
Book of Enoch, yeah.
With great logic sometime.
I would really like to know if Book of Enoch is real.
What? I don't know what Book of
It's
Enoch
supposedly a
is.
lost book of the Old Testament. So maybe in the lost book of the Torah.
Doesn't sound likely.
It's all about giants and spaceships and stuff. So.
Is that what Gilgamesh?
Yeah, not Gilgamesh. It's the story of Enoch, and then Enoch brought God up to. Enoch is like the great grandfather of Noah or grandfather of Noah.
Yeah, we call him Enosh, by the way. We don't call him Enoch. I know you guys call him Enoch. We call him Enosh. We'd probably spell it with an S instead of that C. But we pronounce it in Hebrew Enosh. And yeah, I'm familiar with Enosh.
Is there a book on him somewhere?
I'll tell you this much. A friend of mine once had a theory. There's a giant who is referenced throughout the Torah. Not really. Well, he only comes up directly in numbers. But there's a guy named Og, which you would pronounce it Og if you saw it, because it's just spelled O-G. But in Hebrew, it's very clearly spelling the word Og. And he and he actually, we believe, lived for hundreds of years, and according to some authorities, predates Noah, and he's killed ultimately by Moses, which is like 800 years later. And that this guy, if you Google the oldest writing on Earth today, it's called the Book of Gilgamesh. And I heard someone once give this whole thing theorizing that Gilgamesh was actually Og.
Awesome.
And he was supposed to be, and he was supposed to be like 50 feet tall, like a crazy giant. Anyway, I'll ask Great Logic if he's interested in that. Thank you for the heads up on this, PJ Hobbit. I appreciate it. Congrats on monetizing. Yes, congrats to you, brother. You didn't hit 1,000 yet, though.
I didn't hit 1,000. I just hit 808.
808. We got to get him there. Guys, we got to get him there. Jim can't even say Joe from his moves. Well, he did save me from being embarrassed with everyone calling me out on it, because he got me on it first. We got stuff we got to get into. And we got to get into, and stuff that we will get into. So why don't we do that now? Let's start. Let me.
One of them is a gym that I'm not a favor of.
A gym you're not a favor of.
Yes.
I just want to see why I don't see the chat from the ghetto. I don't understand what's happening there.
I was seeing it earlier.
I'm not. I think it's. No, I'm not blaming you.
Yeah, Groiper 940.
I'm not able to pull up the chat from. I don't know why. I'm not able to pull it up because you won't see rants in here.
Oh, no, you don't see rants, but you see the regular chat. Yeah, right here.
Right.
Jim can't save Joe for being on June.
I'm very nervous. I'm very nervous that I'm going to miss rants, and I don't know. Having a real.
I don't see any on your right now. I'm looking.
You won't see it in StreamYard. Are you looking?
No, I'm looking
Rumble?
on your. I have Rumble open too.
All right, so call it to my attention if you see one there. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Cool. All right. With that, let's get started here. All right, because we got stuff to do. First story up is related to 8647. 8647. So Jim Comey, right? What he apparently he tweeted out. Is that what he did? He tweeted
out or Instagram maybe a picture.
Instagrammed out a picture which says 8647. This is where 8647 is not like a secret thing. It's not a secret deal at all. 8647 is something folks know. People realize that 8647 that's becoming a popular thing for the left to be barking like a bunch
If
of
I'm not
idiots.
mistaken, it started back when Trump's first term with Gretchen Whitmer or somebody having 8645.
Yes,
behind her.
Behind her. Yeah. Now I'm glad you brought that up. It was, yeah. So this is what we got here.
Process now.
Due process now. They're out of their minds. It shows how they can be triggered into anything, sitting here chanting for some terrorist to be brought back to country, as if this is his home, and chanting, bring him home. And the point to this clip, ultimately, is that 8647 is not at all an unknown thing, right? I don't care about this.
Right, no, it's
rally.
not unknown.
This was what Comey sent out. Look at that. Look at that. Like, what you have to ask yourself, it's not like you're some nobody, right? I mean, former director of the FBI, this guy, former director of the FBI, tweeting out 8647 and then saying, oh, I didn't know what that is. I don't know what that is. What is, I didn't know what that mean. He writes, I posted earlier a picture of some shells I saw today on a beach, which I assumed were a political message. Oh, did you? Did you? You assumed? But you didn't Google? I didn't realize some folks associate those numbers with violence. Really? Really? What kind of political message did you assume it was? What would you possibly assume it is? It never occurred to me, but I opposed violence of any kind, so I took the post down. Oh, this is like, you know, he's such a shady son of a, like, what the hell is wrong with you? You're so shady. You know it's a political message. What the hell? Then do you sort of sit there and think for a second? Maybe did you think that maybe it's supporting 47? I mean, what does that mean? What does that mean? What would 8647 mean? What is he? It's unbelievable. So Patrick McDavid writing here, you mean to tell me, as the former head of the FBI, Comey, you don't know what 8647 means. You're either 1, incompetent, 2, hate America, 3, finally being honest about your motives, 4, or all of the above. And I'm sure if you ran that as an actual poll, it would be 95% saying 4. But that's only because 5% of the country are idiots.
You did just have a Rumble rant come through for $5.
What was that?
Joe, 2 things.
Who's this
It's
from?
Uzelian.
Uzelian.
Joe, 2 things. 1, you should show Cash's tweet on it. And 2, most people don't know this, but Democrats calling people a Nazi has been going back to the 60s.
Not the Nazi. That's not the problem. That's not the problem. The problem is not that they call him a Nazi. No. The problem is that they're saying that they should be assassinated. That's what it means. That's what it means. It doesn't mean, I mean, I think Comey is going to pretend that I thought it meant get rid of him, like, politically. That's what he's probably going to say. But yeah,
like it's old parlance to say 86 that guy. If you're in like a restaurant or a bar or something like that, and that would be to physically grab him and throw him out.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, that's exactly what he's going to claim. But if you look at the origin of it and what people mean when they're saying it, they don't mean throw him out. Cash Patel said, we're aware of the recent social media post by former FBI Director James Comey, direct at President Trump. We are in communication with the Secret Service and Director Curran. Primary jurisdictions with the Secret Service in these matters, and we, the FBI, will provide all necessary support. Okay. What else did you give me here on this?
There was the Krasensteins post.
Oh, I got it. You got Hey Cash. Krasenstein brothers are also asking for a meeting from you and the Secret Service, both posting shortly after Comey 8647 in their accounts. See below. Wow. That's Brian, and that's some Ed. It's time. Wow. Representative Andy Ogle saying, I just sent a letter to the Secret Service Director Sean Curran and FBI Director Kash Patel urging an immediate joint investigation to former FBI Director James Comey for a disturbing social media post in which he called to 86 President Trump. The letter represents a formal inquiry into possible violations of federal law, including 18 U.S. 871 threats against the president, 875 interstate communications containing threats. It also demands confirmation whether Comey still holds a security clearance or has access to any classified materials. The left spent years claiming Republicans were guilty of stochastic terrorism. Wow. I feel like I just fell back in time to 1974. The left spent years claiming Republicans were guilty of stochastic terrorism for expressing strong political opinions. Now, a former FBI director appears to openly endorse assassinating the president, and they say nothing. If Comey broke the law, he shouldn't get a pass. Here is the letter. Let's pull this.
I just also want to point out that 86 original. The reason they use 86 is because it means 8 feet long, 6 feet deep. So that's like a grave.
Right. 8 feet long, 6 feet deep. So here is the letter. Dear Director Curran, I write to request the United States Secret Service and FBI open an immediate joint investigation into former FBI Director James Comey's May 15, 2025 social media post, which has raised serious and credible concerns that may constitute a threat against the life President Donald J. Trump. Mr. Comey posted an image of seashells arranged in the numbers 8647 to his Instagram account. A widely noted 86 commonly understood as slang for eliminate or kill. And 47 has become a popular shorthand reference to President Trump. 47 President of the United States. When paired, the implication is unmistakable to many Americans. A coded suggestion to eliminate 47, that is, assassinate the president. And it goes on to say here, save image as, save, open it. Given Mr. Comey's former leadership of the FBI, the stakes are even higher. His influence extends well beyond the general public. It's reasonable to assume that his online followers include current or former bureau employees, individuals who may view his commentary as carrying an insider's weight or implicit direction. Okay. If our agencies are to maintain the public's trust in the impartiality and integrity, they must confront the possibility that Mr. Comey's words could inspire or embolden persons not just in the public, but also within federal law enforcement or intelligence circles. Left to spend years invoking the concept of stochastic terrorism to label and denounce rhetorical statements. So do you think this is saying we should do the same?
No, it's not saying we should do the same. It's just be. But I don't know. You've had judges saying "Let's go, Brandon" is obscenity and not protected speech. So I don't know why this wouldn't fall under the same type of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to ask you. Let's parse this out for a second. So he's urging the Bureau and the Secret Service to investigate Mr. Comey's conduct under all applicable laws, including threats against the president and interstate communications containing threats. And I agree that Comey knew what he was saying. Let's assume that we do research into this and Comey knows what he's saying. So do you think that should be a punishable offense? If someone actually wrote out expressly the words in seashells, right?
But to actually, spelled out the actual
words, which I'm afraid to say on
I
YouTube.
wouldn't want to say it either. So that definitely would be a threat, in my opinion. It's special. The president's always got special treatment, for
this
for
is
whatever
true.
reason.
This is true.
Any type of threats, it doesn't really matter.
If instead of Trump, it said Patel.
I don't know. It's not the same. I don't think but then again, threats against government officials, they have special protection. But at the very least, Molly Hemingway had a great tweet about it. That
This is true. She did have a great tweet about it that you shared with me here, which was pretty inspired. And that was, if Comey's interviewed about his call to assassinate President Trump and he repeats his lie that he didn't know what he was doing, make sure to also charge him with lying to FBI agents. Also, to the interview in conjunction with an armed raid at 5 a.m. for old time's sake. That's very funny. That's very, very funny.
turnabout's fair play, Joe.
That's very funny. Yeah. So I'm just going to ask you this. Okay. Do you think someone sees that and gets inspired to take action based on seeing a message written even in someone's timeline?
Well, it's possible. You mean in Molly's timeline to do it at 5 a.m.? Are you saying like in Comey's timeline to actually?
Let's say someone you have kill X, and X can be any congressman, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's something? Do you think that violates that's a free speech exercise right there?
If you're calling for someone to do something to someone, it's not free speech. It's not protected by the First Amendment. Incitement and stuff. It's got to be. We've kind of blurred the lines.
It's not incitement because incitement has to be near and close in proximity. So it's not incitement.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, Brandenburg. I don't know what would happen today if Brandenburg went to the Supreme Court.
I mean, it's speech that we can find detestable, but there's a lot of speech out there that I find detestable. And in certain ways, I think it's worse than what do you think is worse, if it's an individual or if it's an entire race after the word kill? You just insert any race, okay, and you just had kill X.
I think they're equally as bad.
Or let's say someone said just kill Schiff, and that could be any.
I think they're equally a crime. Possibly.
But do you think it's something that should be criminalized?
Sure.
Because
you're putting someone's life in danger.
Is it though? If you say it, you think that's going to put someone's life in danger?
Not if I say it, but if someone with enough following. I mean, look at all the stuff that happened with the what's her face Waters. What's her name? The congresswoman, when she was saying, get up on them, push back on them, and do this. I don't
want to be clear. I don't endorse political violence of any kind at all. So no one should take anything. If you just throw a last name, and by the way, you just throw a name out there, last name that could be interpreted as many different people, right? I mean,
Maxine Waters. What I'm saying is, she was putting remember she gave that speech saying, find them out in public and do this, and when you see them in restaurants or a gas station, push back on them, do this, and to me that was.
I thought it was reprehensible. I thought it was disgusting. I mean, if it's not violating Brandenburg. So you have to walk me through why something is becoming illegal speech. That's what I'm basically asking. Like, at what point does it become illegal? And if someone says kill people who are part of a political party, right? Doesn't identify by race, okay? Or people who support a particular ideology. It could be free. It could be free choice or
Now, but wait, is it just that it's probably, I don't think it's probably not illegal to say the 8647, whatever, or to say these things but are they just going to talk to them because it's just standard practice whenever there's any type of threat or any type of statement of that the Secret Service goes and interviews the person to see if they're a threat?
Yeah. Okay. So you want to basically investigate now to see if this person is a potential threat.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think
that's different than saying charge him with a crime.
Right. No. I'm not. I don't think there's crimes to charge him with.
But Representative Andy Ogles is saying, hey, let's take a good look at him and see if we can charge him with 18 USC 871 for threats against the president. And I just don't understand how seashells would qualify as threats against the president. That's the problem. Because I even though. And maybe we're more sensitive because there's been 2 assassination attempts or something like that when it comes specifically to Trump. And maybe there are harsher rules with respect to specifically the president or elected officials. But what I'm saying is, I think that's detestable speech. I just don't know that it violates Brandenburg and the free speech. The constitutionalist in me is like bothered by, I don't know.
Well, it's just like the woman that said that bad word that raised all the money, and they want to have her arrested for saying it. It's people are calling for things that really there's no reason for. There's no
you're
law
talking
broken.
about, right? You're talking
Shiloh,
about
whatever it was named.
Shiloh
Yeah.
Hendricks. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so I don't know. It's just like, but
here's the thing. So that's what I'm saying is, if it's not illegal, sending the FBI to Comey, who's a detestable, terrible human being. I'm not disputing that either. I'm simply saying, I think that you sort of want to create a framework for this is how we're going to set up how life is going to be here. At a certain point, you have to say, what are we doing? Like, is this, do you want to create America where whoever's in charge basically will operate by these rules? And this is a conversation I've had on this channel before, which is, once you get power, do you need to teach them a lesson, or is that, or are you handcuffing yourself by saying we're not going to teach a lesson, and now they know they can punch you as much as they want, you're not going to punch back?
You should teach them a lesson, but the lesson can't be that we're going to abuse you in ways that aren't legal or constitutional.
In kind.
Yeah,
but what about we're going to mirror your tactics? That's what Ogles is saying here. They engage in stochastic terrorism. Let's do the same thing. Let's do the same thing. And I'm like, no, I don't want to ever be anything like the left. I want to be nothing like them. Nothing like them. Now, and in ways that I don't want to mirror the ugly mud that they go down into. And I do want to go after like people who should be gone after, and that when I saw a tweet that Art Candy put out, it's one of these crazy leftist, people who get paid to post same stupid leftist crap all the time. And he said something about Elon being in France or wherever, or Beirut or UAE with Trump, and saying, look who's here. This is not normal. And I was like, that's why we voted for it. That's a feature, not a bug, that it's not normal, because the way America had become normal was terrible. So this is the new normal now. This is the new normal that he can bring with him someone who he thinks is going to be beneficial to the conversation. This is the new normal. And get you not being the normal you're accustomed to, that's good. And I don't want to ever be anything like them. And that includes that, hey, I want to have the people who did illegally try to punish people, I want those people held accountable. Meaning, I want accountability, and that the way you can teach them a lesson is by holding them accountable for violating the Constitution in the way they bastardized it, in the way they went after people on the right. Those are the people you punish. This way, you're basically showing, hey, look, if you're going to try to break the rules to suit yourself, you're going to be held accountable for it. And once the wheel turns back around, you're going to be held accountable for it. I think that's much better than mirroring their image. Otherwise, and mirroring what they do, but just doing it back to them, because ultimately, then just everyone ends up getting a black eye. It's like, oh, okay, if you blinded him, so I'm going to blind you, and he's going to blind the other guy because he blinded you. It's stupid. That's not. You just end up with no one can see. That's not a healthy place. That's not making America a better place.
Is the way, though, to make it a better place possibly to push the limit on a couple things and get the line drawn better? Because like a couple people in the chat are saying, like Douglas Mackey, the guy who posted that meme on Twitter, ended up going to prison for posting a meme on Twitter.
Right.
Got judges. I mean, it seems like rulings are made all the time to destroy the First Amendment whenever it's people speaking out against the left, or or doing something to make fun of them or whatever, and the right plays by the rules, and we're getting. I mean, I think you should pretty much be able to say anything as long as you're not making a direct threat to somebody.
Right. So someone writes in Seashells, the 8647, you don't care. And
I mean, the Secret Service has a job to do. They have to investigate and go make sure he's not a threat. Which same thing they did with Kathy Griffin with the head and all that, which nobody thought Kathy Griffin was going to cut his head off.
Right. But is she calling for him to be decapitated? And if she is, and like I said, there could be that there's different rules with respect to the president, and that would kind of make sense. So you don't want to, give people free reign to call for revolution. That kind of makes sense, of some sort of chaotic, anarchistic revolution. I get that, but
Well, I mean, if you're calling for revolution and you take any type of furtive steps, wouldn't that be a seditious conspiracy?
yeah, it would be. It would be.
I don't
mean,
know.
certainly. I'm just saying, I don't love this. I mean, I understand why people want to go after Comey. Okay, he's a terrible human being. His daughter, and this is something I tweeted out today. His daughter is the one who's Maureen Comey is the lead prosecutor in the Diddy case, and Robert Barnes tweeted out there that the charges that were brought against Diddy have been were basically a way of putting on a show trial. That's what this ultimately is, and I cannot disagree with the fact that those charges have been sanitized. What do I mean by sanitized? And I tweeted this out. I said, I think they probably were sanitized. I don't know the whole Diddy story, but there's a lot of people who say they have involvement with the Clintons, that he has involvement with the Clintons and all sorts of different things, and that touch on people engaging in crimes with children and all sorts of terrible stuff that he supposedly has been involved in. And his point is that if you sanitize the charges and say, no, we're really going after him, it's kind of like the best analogy I can give you for this is it's almost like if someone says, yeah, we really need to go after that arsonist because he burned down that building. He built down the Reichstag. There was the whole Reichstag fire. So we're going to hold this person totally accountable. And the person they want to hold accountable is Adolf for burning down the Reichstag building. And that's how you're holding him accountable. It's almost as if you're sanctioning the other much, much worse crimes that he engaged in. So if you charge Diddy with these crimes of trafficking and you ignore all the much worse stuff that he did and pretend that never happened, it's a way of actually not upholding justice, but perverting justice, because you're sending a message that we're going to pretend that other stuff never happened and give him a pass on it. And you're actually using the justice system to pervert justice by saying these are the charges we're going after. And you can make that claim with respect to the way Maureen Comey handled the leveling of charges against Diddy, right?
Well, it's the same thing she did with Maxwell, right?
Yeah, with Maxwell. Well, with Maxwell, I don't know that it was the charges they chose, but it was the evidence that she was producing there was certainly evidence had nothing at all to do with any political figures, and doing whatever she could to wherever there was any sort of reference to the elite class, she was deleting it and blocking stuff out. So yeah, she's a pure establishment hack.
There's tons of rumors about Diddy that people like. I don't know if people like.
It's about the Jonathan Odie. It's about the Jonathan Odie thing.
That guy that went and shot up the Trump thing, and
yes, that's Jonathan Odie, who has all sorts of claims that Diddy was involved with the Clintons and all sorts of weird cult and Obama and some sort of weird cult. And whenever I see stuff like that, I assume you're trying to bait me into looking like an idiot and running down that rabbit hole. That's how I feel. I'm like, look, it's too much. It's too easy for me to be like, yeah, let's go get him, and be like out of my mind.
There's pictures of all these. There's pictures of these white parties with Obama at the white parties and Hakeem Jeffries at the white parties and all these people there. So now, did they stay? Was there freak offs after? I don't know. I don't know.
I'm just saying, the more outrageous the claim is, the firmer the evidence I'm going to need to even start looking at it, because I know people want to clickbait me into trusting into sort of, if someone's feeding me a narrative that just feels too juicy, something like, wow, I'd really love for that people in MAGA would really love for it to be true. But I'm like, yeah, I'm very, very worried that you're some clickbait guy who's gonna show me a picture here and show me some other thing there, and just like go like take these things that have nothing to do with each other and I start feeling like I can see the red string this way and the red string that way, and it's got a big map here tying everyone together, and I'm just like, look, I know that that anytime they scream conspiracy theory, that means you're on the right track. I wouldn't even call it conspiracy theory. I'm just like, I don't even know what the heck you're talking about. And so I don't know anything about the Clinton and Obama tied into Diddy. I know nothing about this, but I do understand the concept of something being sanitized for the purpose of trying to whitewash something else. And it's almost like, look over here at these crimes that he did. Let's all focus over here. Stop, just focus here. And people like Maureen Comey and Jim Comey are very expert at that.
Didn't Kamala Harris attend white parties with her boyfriend, Montel Williams?
So everyone, you're talking about the Diddy parties, right?
Right, the parties, yeah.
Right. Yeah, apparently everyone wanted to go to the Diddy parties.
Yeah,
apparently everyone wanted to go to the Diddy parties. Like anyone who was anyone wanted to go to the Diddy parties. And people assume that if you went to the Diddy party, that means that you're basically, someone who's looking to attack children. And I think that that's a bit much. Let's move along because I got 20 minutes left here, and I got to cover some of these here. Thank you so much, Julio Scissors. Appreciate the super chat there, brother. Especially hit with him being overseas. You effing cool. I don't remember what that was about. But Ethiopian Jewish community observed Book of Enoch. Okay. He has a right to say it. We can't be held responsible for our words inspiring others to commit a crime, but I think he was giving orders to operators. So that's different.
Coded message.
That's different.
That would be different. Yeah.
That's obviously very different. That's very different. And I guess that's a reason to investigate. Comey identifies as Poseidon or Aquaman, depending on how you look at it. Might be he's trying to get headlines or attention. Could be. Wonder what case law says on 18 USC US Code 871. I haven't looked at it. I first notice charges not touched on as white parties. Nothing related to white parties. We will not hear anything in this trial about white parties. Good job, Joe. Diddy reporting must be hard. Trending is a Tootsie Roll story. You're the best on internet reporting. Only you, Joe, could do it justice. Thank you. A Tootsie Roll story? What is she talking about? Do you know?
I don't know.
I gotta move on. I gotta get into the Supreme Court because I got like 20 minutes here, and we got to move on. So let me just see Tootsie Roll what this is. I will say this. I look at other people's coverage of the Diddy story and of the Diddy trial, and I'm like, no one's doing anything remotely like what I'm doing.
The only thing that I would think maybe she's talking about a Tootsie Roll would be another way to a dog turd.
Sean Diddy Combs accused of blanking a woman who compared his erection to a Tootsie Roll in a new lawsuit. Interesting. Okay. So that's gonna be new charges. I am going to be covering after. I'm going to be rolling over. So this is I'm supposed to be doing like an hour now, and when I'm going to be rolling over into another stream, and it should raid in the ghetto. It should be raiding on over into the other stream where I'm going to be doing Diddy in depth, and I'm supposed to be doing that like in another 20 minutes. So maybe I'll look at it at that point. But let's start talking about SCOTUS and what's going on there, because I got thoughts on that. So 9 judges Supreme Court showed little consensus as they grilled government lawyers about the costs and benefits of lower judges imposing nationwide restraining orders on President Donald Trump's reformist policies, including his update of birth citizenship policies. That is from Breitbart News. I want to look at Turley because I like Turley a lot. So let's get his thoughts on this. Today, the United States Supreme Court will hear 3 consolidated cases in Trump v. CASA on the growing use of national or universal injunctions. This is a matter submitted on the shadow docket, and the underlying cases concern the controversy over birthright citizenship. However, the merits of those claims are not at issue. So everyone's talking about being birthright, but it's not really a birthright case. However, instead, the Trump administration has made a modest request for the court to limit the scope of lower court injunctions to their immediate districts and parties challenging the right of such court to bind an administration across the nation. The case is a consolidation of 3 matters: Trump v. CASA, Trump v. Washington, Trump v. New Jersey, which is interestingly out of Massachusetts. These cases, isn't that weird? Trump v. New Jersey is out of Massachusetts. These cases also present standing issues since the administration challenges the argument that there's a cognizable injury to individuals who may travel to the states bringing the action. However, the main question is the scope of the injunction. As I previously written, district court judges have issued a record number of injunctions in the first 100 days of the Trump administration. Under George Bush, there were only 6, which increased to 12 under Obama. When Trump came to office, he faced 64 such orders in his first term. When Biden Democrats returned to office, it fell back to 14. That was not due to more modest measures. Biden did precisely what Trump did, seeking to negate virtually all of his predecessors' orders and seek sweeping new legal reforms. Repeatedly found to have violated the Constitution, but there was no torrent of preliminary injunctions at the start of his term. Yet when Trump returned to office, the number of national injunctions soared again in the first 100 days and surpassed the number for the entirety of Biden's term. This is a rare argument. First, it's the shadow docket filing that usually results in summary decisions without oral argument. So it's weird to have an oral argument in this sort of application. Moreover, which means we'll probably get a decision much faster.
Mm-hmm.
The matter came after what is commonly viewed as the final day for oral arguments. The court granted a rare late oral argument reflecting that multiple justices view this matter sufficiently serious to warrant a break from standard operating procedures. I'm going to do this. If we hit the goal, I will watch probably on speed version on Saturday night. I will watch the oral arguments Saturday night if we hit the goal. The goal is so where are we at on the goal here? The goal that I have here is at, let's say I have 1. That doesn't make sense. I have more than 1 that I see here. If I hit the goal, I'll do a late night thing where I'll watch it with everyone. I'll even count this as I'll count this as one of them. Gifted 5 Jim Tells You memberships. Look at that. 5 Jim Tells You memberships. That's so awesome. That is great. Inner City Press live tweets have been good. We'd love a show with him like Week in Review. I'll talk to him about that. About his thoughts about how the case is going, whether he's interested in doing that. I'd like to do that with him. Rather than arguing a question presented on birthright citizenship, the administration is solely looking for limits on the district court as appeals continue on the important constitutional questions raised by birthright citizenship. The administration argues that the Constitution does not give judges power to issue universal injunctions. They're limited to addressing cases before them in a given district. Administration acknowledges that class actions can create the basis for universal injunctions, offering a moderate resolution to the court, saying, hey, look, if you want to be able to fix it, well, then if you can establish a class, then fix it that way. What does that mean to establish a class? That probably is language that is confusing to people who are not attorneys. So let me explain that to you. Let me explain that to both of you. When I say both of you, I mean my co-host and to you, the listening audience. And if you have any questions on what I'm saying, please ask me, okay? You've probably heard the term class action suit. And a class action suit, and it's very similar to what he's talking about over here. In a class action suit, what you have is, I'll give you a perfect class action suit, okay? You have a GE sells refrigerators, okay? And they advertise that the interior of the refrigerator has 36.8 cubic feet. But it turns out, when you measure it, it's only got 31.4. So they're advertising it. Everyone's thinking that they're getting 36 feet. And they're only getting 31. Well, now you bought one of these refrigerators. And what is your damage? If you wanted to sue GE, what is your damage? Your damage is like, well, what's the difference that you would pay for a refrigerator that only holds 31 square feet instead of 36, right? You're still a working refrigerator. Everything works fine, exactly as you looked at it, just smaller. So you sort of would estimate, well, what would a comparable refrigerator that's 20% smaller, what would you pay for that? And maybe the price would be 20% off. So instead of it being, I don't know, $700 for the refrigerator, I'll just throw out a number here, you would pay $550. So you got cheated out of $150. Are you going to sue for the $150? No one can sue for $150. That's crazy. That doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make, because to pay a lawyer to speak to you for an hour, it's going to cost you more than that. So how can anyone sue for that? So the law has created this concept of class action suits. that all these people can come together, all the people who are victims of that type of deception, and this comes up all the time. Most class action suits involve stocks and other securities, where there'll be something that's written in the fine print as to like updates on their financials and projections and things of that nature that will be deemed misleading. And everyone who bought a stock during that period of time when that was up there and relevant to the trading, anyone who bought that stock would be considered defrauded, and there's an assumption that they relied on the representations that were put in there. So that's where you have the most class action suits lie in there. So what you do is, how do we see, so who's capable of actually getting recovery of their $150 of the refrigerator? Well, normally you would create a class and say anyone who bought this refrigerator from date X, when that advertisement saying how much space was in there, until date Y, is eligible to be in the class of people who are considered the plaintiffs in this particular scenario. So that's your class. And you'll have one class representative. And in order to create a class, there's actually multiple characteristics. There's 4 different characteristics you need to have in order to be a class action. Your lead plaintiff has to be someone who is typical of the type of damage that everyone else suffered. It has to, in order to have class action, you have to have the people that are too numerous to all be brought in. And you need to have adequate representation, and there has to be commonality. Those are the 4 factors. You have to have commonality. Numerosity means that it's too unwieldy to have that many plaintiffs. You can't have 500 plaintiffs. You can't have, or 50,000 plaintiffs. So you have one person, and their story becomes representative of everyone's story. And that's where commonality comes in. That all of them have suffered damage in the same way. The same type of wrong was visited upon all of them. And this way, a lawyer or law firm can go out there and sue, and then they'll hit this, and assuming they win, they'll get a collective judgment, which is supposed to cover for all the people who are damaged. And they have to put notices out to notify anyone, if you're in this class, sign in so we can opt you into it so you can get your taste of the pie. And then and sometimes they'll add on punitive damages, sometimes they'll add on attorney's fees if it's the people who are really nefarious in the way they did things. And the attorneys will take a percentage off of the total winnings, and then they'll basically parse out to the rest of the class their little taste. And your taste will be very small. Your taste as a plaintiff will be very small. The objective here is to really punish the defendant for their negligence / the fraud that they were committing there. Now, in the concept of what we're talking about, what's the key there is you need to be able to define that class. We all have these characteristics in common, and we all are suffering from the same type of wrong. And we're all similarly situated that we can have one person come forward here who's part of the class. And you need to get the class certified. A judge needs to look and figure out how will we define people who are eligible to be in this class, because they need to write out those definitions, and that way you can sort of figure out who the relief is going to be applying to. Now, if you have some sort of law that's coming out saying something like, let's say, about a race of people, or let's say people who are part of political ideology, right? Let's say let's say Biden had passed some law saying anyone who's MAGA has to wear a tag on it with a red hat on it, right? Or something like that. So now we want to get an injunction. And we want to stop him. So we go to court and we say, hey, we MAGA folk don't want to have to wear it. Well, you have to be able to define what are MAGA folk and how are you part of that class. And the court would have to, do its own due diligence and hear arguments as to how do we define that class of people who are affected by it. And that's a process. It's not something you can do in 10 minutes. You sort of need to think through, okay, what wrong are they? Who's being harmed by this wrong? Is the person who's coming in here or the entity, the agency that's coming in here, are they a proper representative of that type of damage? And that they can come in here and argue basically on behalf of the hundreds, thousands, or millions of people who are similarly situated. So that's where you have class certification. But that's a whole lengthy process. Not something a TRO that these people are getting comes 10 minutes after there's an executive order, and a day later you get a TRO. and it's applying to a whole class, and we don't even know what the hell who's in the class. We don't know who it's applying to. So the birthright citizenship issue, great issue here, right? So someone born here who are you arguing on behalf of? Are you arguing on behalf of illegal aliens who came into this country 5 minutes ago? Illegal aliens who've been living here for the last 5 years? What about ones who sought asylum versus those who are not seeking asylum? What about people who have green cards? Are they arguing for them? Are they being wiped out? So figuring out who's in this group.
Wouldn't the class be unborn, undocumented aliens? That would be the people being denied.
Well, would it be all aliens? Because is it the same rights? Because there are different ways we look at an alien who's let's say someone literally runs across the border, and and he drives right through the border, and opens car door, lets out a pregnant woman, and she pops out a baby 10 minutes later on American soil.
But technically, the pregnant woman wouldn't be the one being injured by the executive order because her child, what does her child having citizenship grant her? How is she injured?
And that's another question you can ask also. Who's able to speak for the unborn? It's not affecting, none of his birthright citizenship is affecting anyone who's alive. So if it's not affecting anyone who's alive, who's able to bring a lawsuit?
Yeah, because they said it wasn't going to be retroactive at all.
Right. It's going forward. So maybe someone in the future could say, hey, I have a right to be deemed a citizen, but no one who's alive has that claim today because it only applies to people in the future. So why would anyone have a claim? Even a pregnant woman shouldn't have a claim because, as you're pointing out, it's not her rights that are being affected. A pregnant illegal alien wouldn't have a claim. It would be her kid. Now, maybe once she gives birth, she can come in there and say, I want my, I'm arguing on behalf as the guardian of this child. Maybe. At that point,
it's kind of a tricky situation for Democrats because they've been arguing forever that those unborn babies have no rights whatsoever.
Yeah, I know. You can kill them, but you can't stop them from becoming American citizens. That sums up the left in every way possible. Sums up every way possible. It really does. You can bash them in the head and end their lives, but you cannot deprive them of becoming American citizens. Unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's get back to Jonathan Turley here. So that's what he's talking about when he says that, class actions can create a basis for universal injunctions. That if you had a district court judge who said, hey, I'm going to at least sit down and do the work to figure out who a class is and who's going to be put into this class and how we're going to define this class, then it could affect someone perhaps beyond his jurisdiction. In such cases, the parties can meet the standard for a national class. They can, you have to be able to set up that such a class is able to be defined. If it's not definable, you cannot create a class, and there would be no class action suit. There would be no class created, because as we're having this discussion here, if you cannot define the class, and I'd be like, wait, does it include that woman who just drove across the border, or does it not include her? Is it applied to how if you cannot define it, there's no class and you can't offer any relief. In today's arguments on Becoming a Fox and an X, we can expect to hear from justices who have previously been critical of universal injunctions, including Thomas, who in his concurrent opinion in Hawaii called them legally and historically dubious. Likewise, Justice Gorsuch and Alito have criticized such injunctions in a prior dissent to an emergency filing in the Department of State versus AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition. Alito was joined by Thomas, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh and stating the government has a strong argument that the district court's order violates the principle that a federal courts may not issue an equitable remedy that is more burdensome than necessary to redress the plaintiff's injuries. And that's the point. And this comes back to the whole class thing. What does this mean when they wrote here that you cannot give an equitable remedy that's more burdensome than is necessary to redress the plaintiff's injuries? So ABC Company says we're being harmed by this Trump EO. Why would you put an injunction that's going to go beyond ABC Corp? Why that you're saying he's got to undo the whole EO? Why? The only person you can be helping, if at all, would be ABC Corp, and say you have to keep paying ABC Corp.
If I'm not mistaken, this order for this birthright, this CASA case, basically forbade the government from even looking into anything, from promulgating any rules, from developing anything.
Yep.
guidance or anything, like coming up with how it would be, any type of plan or anything. That's all the order was doing, was like telling the heads to figure out how we could do this, and let's, come up with some kind of plan.
Mm-hmm. Many of us will be watching three members of the most closely. Chief Justice John Roberts, Associate Justices Elena Kagan and Amy Coney Barrett. Roberts is the ultimate institutionalist, and we should see in his argument how he views the impact of such injunctions on the court system as a whole. He's very protective of the court's inherent authority, but may also have misgivings about the scope of these orders. During the Biden administration, Kagan has previously criticized universal injunctions. In an interview at Northwestern University Law School, Kagan flagged the forum shopping by litigants in filing cases before favorable courts, which is what all these people getting EOs or getting TROs are doing. You look at something like that and you think you can't be right. In the Trump years, people used to go to Northern District of California. In the Biden years, they go to Texas. It just can't be right that one district judge can stop nationwide policy in the tracks and leave it stop for the years that it takes to go through the normal process. Justice Barrett, so that would be hypocritical if she doesn't slam down on this.
And actually, Kagan, in all honesty, she's the best of those on the left.
Yeah, that's true. Barrett previously joined Kavanaugh in saying the power of district courts to enter universal injunction is an important question that could warrant our review in the future. So
there should be a couple clips of some of the argument. There's a little clip of Thomas and a clip of Coney Barrett talking.
Yeah, this is where he said he was talking about it, but I'm not gonna look at that now. Let's pull up Thomas. You know where he's landing before this starts.
General, when were the first universal injunctions used?
We believe that the best reading of that is what you said in Trump against Hawaii, which is that Wirtz in 1963 was really the first universal injunction. There's a dispute about Perkins against Lukens Oil going back to 1940. And of course, we point to the court's opinion that reversed that universal injunction issued by the DC Circuit and said it's profoundly wrong. Now, if you look at the cases that the either party cite, you see a common theme. The cases that we cite, like National Treasury's Employment Union, Perkins against Lukens Oil, Frothingham and Massachusetts against Mellon, going back to Scott against Donald, and all of those are cases where the court considered and addressed the sort of universal, in that case, statewide issue of provision of injunctive relief. So when the court has considered and addressed this, it has consistently said you have to limit the remedy to the plaintiffs who appearing in court and complaining of that remedy.
So we survived until the 1960s without universal injunctions.
That's exactly correct. And in fact, those are very limited, very rare, even in the 1960s. It really exploded in 2007 in our cert petition in Summers against Earth Island Institute. We pointed out that the Ninth Circuit had started doing this in a whole bunch of cases involving environmental claims.
There you go. It is a relatively new invention. Mike Davis had some thoughts on this also. He has a 6-minute clip. We don't have time for the full 6-minute clip because I do need to get onto the Diddy stuff. But let's see what we got here.
Mike, this thing quickly metastasized to a discussion far beyond just birthright citizenship. Can you walk us through what exactly happened today? And is Weissman your favorite guy? Is he right or is he wrong, sir?
Well, it was a bit of a muddled mess today at the Supreme Court. Look, it is very clear under the 14th Amendment to the Constitution that the birthright citizenship provision of the 14th Amendment was enacted to overturn the Dred Scott decision, to make sure that the children of freed slaves were citizens of the United States and they had the rights of citizens of the United States. That's what the intent of the birthright citizenship provision of the 14th Amendment was. That was expanded by the Supreme Court to include, in the Chinese exclusion case, that was expanded to include lawful permanent residents of the United States.
Pause 1 second.
Lawful permanent residents.
So, if I'm not mistaken, there are Chinese exclusion laws, which are still good laws on the books. They haven't been overturned, correct?
The Wong Kim Ark case is what
No,
you're
but
getting at?
Wong Kim Ark was different because that was about a child.
Oh, yeah,
Because at
you're
the
saying
time-
the underlying law, which led
The
to
underlying
Wong Kim
laws
Ark.
that said that his parents could not become citizens. There was a
Yeah,
law
I
that
think
prevented.
I think there was a law that overturned it. at a certain point.
But what it was is that they came into the country and there was laws that said they could not become citizens. I think it was mainly in California.
Yeah,
that law.
Chinese nationals during the period of Wong Kim Ark. In case you're unfamiliar with that case, the Kim Ark case, which is what the left loves citing, and when they're talking about whenever they're talking about birthright citizenship. So this is Supreme Court's decision, which goes back to the end of the 19th century, and that involved this young man who was like 20 years old, whose parents were nationals living in this country. And because American law prohibited them from becoming citizens, they were not citizens, but they were residents of California, lived in the United States, and were in every way possible for a Chinese person, a citizen, when he was born. And when this kid came back, he went to China and came back. They didn't want to let him back in, saying that you're not an American citizen. And they said, look, you know, that's when this whole conversation happened. And he said that, you know, he subjected himself to American law, and accordingly, under the 14th Amendment, he's allowed to come in here. But the point was that his parents were not illegal aliens. They had every legal right to be here. They were completely supposed to be here, and they came in as thoroughly as their race at the time was allowed admission into this country. And accordingly, you can't deny him his opportunity for him to return to this country. But to start reading in and start saying this means that anyone who's on our soil, irrespective of how hostile they are to our country, which is what the left says, no matter how hostile, no matter what allegiance they hold to foreign countries, that they now have a right under the 14th Amendment to citizenship in the United States. This is not something that anyone thought in 1900, in 1910, 1920, 1930. No one thought this. This is relatively new. I mean, you were saying it came about in the 60s or so is when people started.
I think that's when the change. I think that's when the change happened as far as with the State Department for passports of them, because they used to require information about your parents' citizenship to get your passports, and I don't think they do that anymore. So that's how they would check to say like, oh, well, even if you were, you know, like is your, you know, like if your parents, if you were born in the United States and your parents were never citizens, went back, you know, whenever. It's not supposed to apply to people that are here visiting or here, you know, like a temporary.
And here's the thing: people take the language of the 14th Amendment, which says subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, and say, well, anyone who could be thrown in jail is subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. That's not true. That's not what that language ever was thought to mean by the people who wrote that amendment, because they certainly didn't apply it to. They didn't apply it to Native Americans. They weren't applying it to Chinese people. They weren't applying it to a whole bunch of folk. Subject to to jurisdiction of the United States means we can draft you. If we have a right to draft you, then you have to then you're subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. If you're not draftable, which, you know, someone visiting this country cannot be drafted. Yeah, of course you can't go shooting up a mini mart and then walk free because, you know, we have no jurisdiction over you. That's not what that means. It doesn't mean any level of jurisdiction. It means we have complete jurisdiction over you, in that we can conscript you into our army, God forbid, if such a thing were necessary. That's what subject to the jurisdiction of the United States was meant when they wrote it into the 14th Amendment. But it's been bastardized to mean anyone who is under any sort of jurisdiction in the United States now is anyone on our soil, right? Anyone who could be arrested by the police is on our soil. You're subject to jurisdiction.
Perfect example of that to say is the Native Americans, the American Indians. To think they are not subject to the laws of America is insane, because anything that happens, they're federal law. They have to comply with the laws of the states that their reservations are in or whatever. But until there was the statute that gave them the opportunity to accept U.S. citizenship, they were not U.S. citizens. And I'm pretty sure there's still one tribe somewhere that doesn't automatically get the citizenship because they said no. They kept their allegiance to their tribe, you know, to their whatever their tribal. They still, all the other ones still have their tribal councils and everything, but when the statute was passed, they accepted U.S. citizenship to become full U.S. citizens.
I'm in the middle of telling people to sub up to you. That's what I'm doing here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sub up to me. I'm at 808. I only need 192 left to go to get to 1,000. You guys have been awesome and really, really great.
I think I got this link right. No,
Yeah,
I
that's it.
didn't. No, I didn't.
Why? It didn't go
says
right.
page. It says page unavailable.
Oh, here. I give it to you.
Dang it!
Yeah.
Not there. Not at that place. Let's do it. Let's do it better. Let's do it better. Hold on a second.
I have it somewhere here.
You have it somewhere. I think there's no BE in the YouTube. Dang it! Yeah, you are gonna. You're all gonna be teleported. You're all happen. That's all happening soon. We didn't hit our goal, but I still might Saturday night go through that because I really want to watch that.
Yeah, if you
look at
want
you.
somebody to sit around with you Saturday night or something or Sunday night, I'm available.
Oh, that's very thoughtful of you. That's very thoughtful. I wasn't even going to ask. I was like,
I'm not doing nothing else.
all right.
Well, Nighthawk, you could always open another channel and sub on that one too. You could have multiple accounts.
Yeah. I'm pinning this message so you guys will see it, and I'm also going to put it in Rumble. So this way, if I can ever find the stupid Rumble chat here, which I don't know why I can't.
I do also have a Rumble channel, but that's not a big deal. It's
I don't know why I can't see the stupid Rumble chat. This is so weird.
you can't see it on Rumble.
No.
Oh, you did have another Rumble rant.
What was that?
$2 Rumble rant.
What you got?
You guys take turns being the cult leader, asking for a friend. That is from Dano, Dainno, D-A-I-N-N-O.
Dano? I don't know.
Bookham Dano? I don't know.
Yeah. All right. I got to wrap up over here. It's time for me to head on over and start handling Diddy. So I thank you all for joining me. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, drop a comment in the algorithm. What do you think about, do you think that we're going to win the Supreme Court? Do you think that we're going to get enough justices there? I think it all comes down to Chief Justice Roberts, who is a snake.
I think there's 4.
We got 4. I think
Gorsuch, Alito, Thomas, and Kavanaugh are going to go with the Trump administration.
The four men, I think, are all going to go with limiting it. It really all boils down to Roberts.
If it's a really narrow opinion about injunctions only, saying, hey, you can only be, you have to certify a class or something like that, I could see maybe that has nothing to do with the birthright citizenship or any of the other cases, underlying facts, just about the injunctions.
Yeah,
I could see maybe getting to 7-2.
No, I don't see.
I'm saying it's possible because Barrett's talked about being against. We've got Kagan and Barrett have both talked about these universal injunctions being bad, that it's bad forum shopping, stuff like that. So
here's as an institutionalist, you would think that he wants to protect the institution of the court, which is in jeopardy from all these wacky judges signing off on those TROs. That's a motivation for him to do it. The motivation for him not to do it is I think he really dislikes Trump. So that's
bigger than Trump, though.
You would hope he sees that. But yeah. Anyway, that's my show. I'm sticking to it. You know what they say. Lab meat is not for you. It is for they, them. It's never been for you. When you see lab meat, I want you to just picture it, just rotted and mildewy. Ew. No. And do not in any circumstances eat the bugs. I thank you all for joining me. I'm going to be heading over to Diddy in like less than 60 seconds. So you're going to be redirected there anyway. So you kind of almost have to like try to get away. I'll see you all over there in a minute. And for those few of you who don't manage to make the transition, I still say to you, have a phenomenal weekend. I thank you for joining me. Good night and Godspeed. Great job, brother.
You didn't end it yet.
I did. I don't know what happened here. I hit end stream. Wait a moment, then